He grabbed her coat and pulled it open. What everyone saw next shut the room down. Maya worked the night shift at the old bus depot coffee stand, her cap low and her smile steady. She liked the silence between trains and the soft hum of neon lights. She knew most faces but preferred not to guess their stories. She worked there for peace after years when sirens had ruled her sleep. Most nights were plain: pour coffee, wipe counters, hand out change, and listen to passengers trade small talk. But that night changed everything in a way no one expected. A group of young, loud men slid in looking for fun at someone else's expense. They pushed cups and shoved at Maya like it was a game, and she was the piece to be mocked. She made herself small and kept busy, hoping the moment would pass without a scene. He grabbed the edge of her coat and tore it, expecting a quick laugh and a frightened face. The coat fell open. Beneath it was a long surgical scar and a worn search and rescue plaque, faded, with a tiny dent and a smear that looked like soot. It took a second for the room to read what they were seeing. The men laughed at first. Then the sound died in their throats. Maya did not speak. She did not need to tell them about nights when ceilings had collapsed and the air had been full of smoke and screams, about hands she had pulled through wreckage, about the last call she could not answer for someone she had tried to save. The scar told the story instead, the burns that never left, and the skin that had been stitched together by steady hands. The plaque told its piece. The unit she had been part of, the people who went into danger to find others. The man who had shoved her stepped back, looking small in the noon of his own bravado. Shame settled into him like a heavy coat. He left without a side glance. The others grew quiet. People who had been wrapped up in their own nights, the early shift trucker with a thermos, the student with a stack of books, the elderly woman with a knitted hat, looked at Maya differently. An older man left an extra tip on the counter, and a teenage girl, who had been scrolling, stood and took off her own jacket to hand to the homeless man on the bench. Maya fixed her coat, slid a damp cloth across the counter, and kept pouring coffee. She did not need applause. Her calm became a kind of answer louder than words. After that night, small changes spread quietly through the depot. Regulars began to notice the old homeless man more often and to bring him an extra sandwich. A driver who had never smiled now said hello each morning. People left small notes on the board offering rides or help with groceries. Maya continued to collect a few things that mattered to her. A burned photograph folded into a red wallet, a bent button pulled from the lapel of a coat taken from a rubble site, and letters families had written years later to say thank you. She kept those pieces in a small tin under the counter, a private museum that reminded her why she could not walk away from helping, even if helping sometimes meant carrying the weight of memory. She had been through things that left noise in the bones and silence in the heart. The coffee stand was a place where she could breathe and do small kindnesses that kept her steady. The depot owner hung a tiny plaque months later, not to make a hero of anyone, but to remember nights when people had worked without asking for their names to be shouted. It listed volunteers and those who had given their nights to others, and people paused to read it in the odd quiet between trains. Maya skipped the small ceremony. She preferred to flip pancakes for a 10-year-old who watched the tracks and drew trains in a battered notebook. That boy began to imagine a life where ordinary folks did extraordinary things without trophies, and he told his mother that one day he wanted to help others too. Word moved through the town slowly, like steam through a room, and it changed how people reacted when they saw someone struggling. A man pushing past with a stroller would pause to hold the door. A student with a heavy bag would be offered a seat. People began to think twice before making jokes at someone else's expense. It was not dramatic or sudden. It was a dozen small choices multiplied into a different rhythm for a small community. Maya never told the full story of what had happened. In burned buildings and collapsed rooms, she kept her memories close and used them to shape quiet mercies. She left extra food for a mother who looked tired, sat with a man who needed to talk, and taught a teenager how to make a proper flat white. Each quiet act was a stitch in a fabric that grew sturdier. Once, a woman who had been helped years earlier came by and left a letter in the tin under the counter. It spoke of a child who grew up, of a house rebuilt, and a gratitude that had kept the writer through bleak months. Maya read the letter at closing time, hands steady, eyes soft, then slid it into the tin beside the photo and the button. She felt the small weight of meaning that made nights at the depot worth the memories she carried. There was a truth in how life moved through that place. Quiet courage could change a corner of the world if people noticed enough to act. It did not require grand gestures or headlines. It required noticing, simple attention, and small acts that make taking care contagious. In the end, remember this. The person who looks ordinary may carry an extraordinary past. They do not ask for applause. They ask only for our respect and occasional kindness. If this moved you, like the video, share it and tell us in the comments which moment stayed with you. Maybe you know someone quiet and brave. Tag them and honor their story.